Next will be the panel discussion, how to seize opportunities for renewable energy in Japan. May I invite the panelists to come forward? Whilst they are coming forward, please allow me to introduce the panelists. Professor, Department of Policy Science and Society, the Faculty of Social Sciences, Hosei University, Professor Hiroshi Takahashi, Mr. Takeki Masukawa, Secretary General, Japan Photovoltaic Energy Association, Senior Director for Environmental Policies, Bureau of Environment, Tokyo Metropolitan Government, Ms. Akiko Miura, Further, Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank, Executive Managing Director, JCLP, Ms. Kaori Miyake. The moderator is the Senior Manager at Renewable Energy Institute, Senior Manager of Climate Change, Kae Takase. Dr. Takase. Thank you for the introduction. This is the panel discussion, and Professor Takamura tasked us to go really in-depth on a discussion, so let us do so. We have to face the truth. We have to face the reality, the truth. First of all, this looks at the major economies. Roman, our researcher, always prepares this graph. This looks at the ratio of renewable, including Japan. The latest number, March 17, 2025, and what it was in 2024. Japan, 25% renewable. Sweden and other countries like Canada, Ireland, Australia, and China. Even China has gone to 34%. Then, for the 1 year of 2024, in the case of Japan, the renewable is 24 to 25%, which is not bad. Professor Takamura said it has increased 7 times. In the 1 year of 2024, throughout the year of 2024, how much capacity was added? Again, this is the slide prepared by Roman, our researcher. Left-hand side above, the small one is including China. Ms. Nemoto also referred to China because China is increasing additional capacity per annum, and when China is included, we lose the big picture. So the larger graph is excluding China. In the case of Japan, in the 1 year of 2024, solar 2.5 gigawatt, wind 0.5 gigawatt. Compared to our neighbor, Republic of Korea, it was a bit larger. United States, India, and China, and Germany. In the 1 year of 2024, mainly solar, you can see a significant add-on. In the case of Japan, not that large increase in 2024. At our institute, we have studied the 7th Strategic Energy Plan, and at the same time, we issued our scenario. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side from you, and on the right-hand side, this is our scenario. By 2040, 90% can be covered by renewable, and 40 to 50% is the scenario by the strategic energy plan. And the wind looks very small in ratio, but this is their capacity. And calculating backwards, am I correct? Then, in the 1 year of 2024 and through to 2040, the amount of additional capacity that Japan needs per year, by a simple calculation, 6 to 13 gigawatt per year must be added on. In terms of solar, 1 to 2 gigawatt of wind must be added on per year, according to the government. And according to our scenario, if 90% is renewable, then wind has to be accelerated in terms of new capacity per year. And compared to that graph, 2.5, 0.5 was the earlier graph, but 6 through 13 and 1 to 2 gigawatt, which means we have to accelerate the additional capacity. This is the reality or the truth. This is the reality that we have to squarely face. In this report, in order to make all the countries able to enjoy the benefit of energy economy, structural barriers and major challenges have been identified, and the 5 have been listed. The 3rd, 4th, and the 5th, of course, they are important, but the 1st and the 2nd is what I suggest we discuss today. We have the front runners, we have the frontline warriors as the panelists who are indeed facing the truth and reality in their daily activities. We can go until morning, but we only have time until 5:25, so we would like to have active discussion. And of course, you may ask questions amongst the panelists because each of you have one microphone. You can just cut in and talk out. So first of all, the report mentions structural barriers and major challenges. By keeping what the report said in mind, looking at the current solar situation in Japan, there might be some headwind, but maybe your initial remarks, like 5 minutes, looking at the current situation of Japan.
Thank you very much for today, and good afternoon to everyone. If I could have my slides up. This is the slogan of JPEA, having solar power on all the roofs in Japan. These are the capacity additions of solar power around the world, and this is data from IEA PVPS in 2024. In 1 year, 602 gigawatt of capacity additions have been introduced. 1 million watt or 1 unit of nuclear power plant is 1 gigawatt. This is unthinkable. This was unthinkable, let's say 3 years ago, but this is the situation in the world. How about in Japan? In 2014, Japan accounted for 24% of the world market, which was relatively quite big. But now capacity additions are decreasing in Japan while the world is increasing. So our share, Japan's share, is less than 1%, which is very regrettable. We need to do something about it. In the 7th Basic Energy Act that was covered by Professor Takamura, the renewable energy will account for 40 to 50% of the power generation mix in 2040, and solar will account for 23 to 29%, which is quite high. And PV Outlook 2050, which is published by JPEA, so 227 gigawatt by 2040, which is in the lower range of what is presented by the government. If we are to achieve the target set by the government, we need to work harder. And the blue area, which covers buildings, including houses, rooftop, and red is on land. But we need to increase installations on buildings. There are discussions that we don't have appropriate land in Japan, which is incorrect. We looked at the potential of how much installation we can make in Japan, 2,380 gigawatts. This is the potential of adopting solar. 2.5 times of the electricity demand that we have today could be covered by this. So of course, this might not be feasible if you think about the economic rationale, but FY22 actual, the potential is only 3.6%, and there are people who are claiming that there are no appropriate land and space in Japan. So it's completely wrong. And most of the installations could be on the roofs of houses or non-housing, 391. And the biggest potential is in farming, agricultural-related land. Solar power utilization, agriculture, that's the kind of initiative that we need, using farmland and support. Solar power could support agriculture. And there is also on water and also on the roofs of EVs. There are big potentials. Now, of the potential, 400 gigawatt could be put in place by 2050. What is needed? What are some pain points that we need to address? So there are 6 challenges. The top 3 is independent of FIT. What is needed if we are to achieve that? Cost needs to be reduced in the world of inflation. It might sound challenging, but we believe this is possible. And generate value, carbon pricing is one area, and how to make it sound. And building a power market, integrating into the power market, and be able to monetize so that we could be independent of the FIT scheme. And the bottom 3 is very important. If the local committee says that they don't need it, it will not be feasible, and therefore coexisting with local committees, as you see at the bottom right, is very important. And overcoming grid constraints and long-term stable operation that you see in the center. Promotion of 3 R's, recycle, reduce, and reuse. Of course, we need to promote 3 R's. And the grid interconnections. This is very important. These are the 6 challenges that we need to overcome. I hope I am okay with time. So that's all for me.
Thank you very much. Indeed, recently there are some anti-solar sentiment films online that there is no exit for the waste, that the waste tend to be harmful. Very little time?
Well, I think we should ask this question to Tokyo government, but it is the waste could be recycled, and has not become mandatory, and therefore some people see it as a problem. But what is introduced as part of FIT or FIP and the removal fee, there are reserves that are set aside separately, and therefore after 2 years or 3 years, the cost that is incurred for landfill is already set aside. It will be covered, but glass must be recycled, for example. We need to have schemes in place to recycle glass, for example. Some people claim that it's not being covered, but that is misinformation. How to bring the waste to the landfill. It has not become a mandatory, but what do you think is necessary? Well, for one thing, voluntary initiatives is one thing, but glass, use recycled glass is one thing. Bottles are recycled, but window glasses are rarely recycled. But the glasses are used in solar power panels could be recycled. It could be recycled and provide incentives. The same could be applied for used paper. I think used paper, recycled paper is very popular. Yes, just like recycled paper. Selling the recycled glass in solar panels could make it more feasible economically.
Ms. Miura, you would have the experience in that area, please.
はい。
Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much. I am Miura from the Environmental Bureau of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and thank you for having me today. Glasses are recyclable, yes, and at Tokyo Metropolitan Government, there's always been this issue of what to do once it reaches the end of use. But in the vicinity of Tokyo, there are recycle facilities. And Tokyo Metropolitan Government has designated 9 facilities, operators who can recycle properly. They have the right capacity to recycle. Aluminum will be used as aluminum feed, and glass will also be recycled as glass. And therefore, we do already have a mechanism to recycle, and the capacity of those operators are quite ample. And therefore, at least in Tokyo Metropolitan Government, we already do have the capability to process and recycle. But cost, I think, is a question, which is still a challenge. Solar panels for household are not being discarded in large numbers yet, but we don't know when it will come out as waste, and it also involves cost to transfer. And Tokyo Metropolitan Government will provide subsidies when those equipment or facilities are to be processed or treated by a designated operator. It is possible to build a business around this. So building a scheme around it to make sure that it runs is important. I understand. Thank you. I'm looking forward to a deeper discussion on solar panels later on.
三宅さんからです。
Then may I ask Ms. Miyake, you are in the position of financial institution, and you have also procured and financed. So from that position, if you can discuss about structural barriers and major challenges, please. Thank you. I am Miyake. At the financial institution at the Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank, I am promoting decarbonization, sustainability, and all related areas. On the other hand, at Japan Climate Leaders Partnership, at JCLP, it has become a general corporation. We are trying to promote decarbonization, and it is a network of leading companies who are proactive in this area. Basically, major users, the consumers of clean energy who really want to purchase cleaner energy, have got together, and we discuss many challenges or present our recommendation to the government. That is the activities of JCLP. I will briefly comment about the current situation from the user-consumer situation. What are the challenges from those who spend the power? And because I'm in a financial institution, from the financial industry, I will discuss some challenges. So that will be 2 dimensions. I have no slides prepared, but at the beginning, the United Nations report was mentioned, and the last 1 or 2 years, there are various reports issued by different organizations, and renewable has now become the cheapest source of power. Now, this is a fact recognized across the world. It's the cheapest. This is an economic impairment, and that is why it is spreading, expanding. That is what you hear often, and that is the message today as well. But is that applicable also in Japan? Is that so also in Japan? But new construction of renewable, there is the average cost, and new build of fossil fuel like thermal power plant, if you compare the new build, then overwhelmingly renewable is cheaper, can be constructed quicker, everything good. But unfortunately, in the case of Japan, what are compared from the power users company, apple to apple are not compared. Unfortunately, the newly built renewable facilities to be built going forward, compared to 10 years ago, it has become extremely cheaper and overwhelmingly it has become cost competitive. However, what is that compared to? Compared to what has been built 20 or 30 years ago, where depreciation, amortization is all over, and the thermally power plant to produce electricity and the to be built renewable facility are compared, and therefore for today's companies who want to purchase power today and tomorrow, then renewable is not exactly that cheap. It is still expensive for the buyers of power today and tomorrow. And as was mentioned here and there, the subsidies to the fossil fuels all over the world, and as is mentioned in the UN report, still countries across the world continue to offer subsidies or deduction or tax incentives or whatnot. And also in Japan, subsidies or support continue for fossil fuel. So if the central government subsidizes fossil fuel-based power and its price, and renewable energy-based power with absolutely no subsidy, I repeat, yes, it has become cheaper compared to 10 years ago. But if you compare the renewable facility construction cost, and if people are given the choice, will everybody choose renewable? Then that reality could be different from what the non-financial institutions see. Having said that, members of JCLP, they are trying to achieve their goal by 2030 and by 2050 towards net zero. How can each of the company be a contribution? And including the entire supply chain, each and every company of JCLP are trying to achieve net zero. However, I think it is the latest 1 year or so, FIT is shrinking, and non-FIT, that is a positive for the business enterprises. For the business enterprises, PPA has increased, and cost has gone down, and it has become cost competitive, so they can place it on their rooftop, or even off the premises. They can also apply the PPA scheme, so those have become possible. However, more recently, the labor cost is rising, components, materials are becoming expensive, and what I thought interesting was I spoke with the company members of JCLP, and the insurance premium so expensive. Why? I asked. Because solar panels get stolen. With PPA, you can't just stand close to the panels, and very recently the copper wires and the panels, everything gets stolen. That is why the insurance is becoming expensive year after year. When you calculate all those numbers, then yes, PPA good. We can go for more PPA, you might have said 1 year ago. And now 1 year after that, we are standing sober and trying to recalculate, review everything again. Unfortunately, that is the reality. From the non-financial enterprises, from the buyer of the power, because they use electricity, right at the moment it is not entirely rosy. And then what does it look like from the financial industry? What does it look like from the investor's perspective? Will there be more investment into decarbonization? Yes, everybody has said that we need to invest more for decarbonization. That is correct. And are there any business opportunities? As business opportunities, people try to look for projects. We also look for projects. But when it comes to photovoltaic, unfortunately, there is cost advantage. But as an investment, the return on investment is not exactly that attractive. Cost has gone down, and from the purchaser's viewpoint, it's good. But whether it is a really profitable business, that is a big question. If it is mega solar and with FIT at 20 yen, that was indeed profitable. And that is why everybody went towards that, because it was genuinely profitable. However, now whether the PV is exactly that profitable, there's a big question whether it is distributed. With a distributed photovoltaic, the profit will become even smaller. So the reality is it's quite difficult. Then what about wind, not PV? As was mentioned, why wind is so small? I agree with that perception. From the financial industry perspective, if photovoltaic is difficult, what about wind? Onshore, replace 20 years old, 30 years old facilities will achieve replacement, and there are a few potential projects. However, FIT is now eliminated or it has gone down, and you look at the unit power price and it is worth investment. Replacement, is it really viable? By importing components and materials, still is it going to be profitable? Even by importing all that you need, then it is not exactly so easy to push ahead. Having said all that, we will go nowhere if we say it's difficult, it's a barrier, and we can't go forward. And the topic what Dr. Takase suggested about structural barriers, from the power user's perspective, it is not a fair competition. Under the current regime and system, fossil enjoy lots of subsidies, and depreciation amortization is over for old thermal power plant and power generated by that plants, and the new renewables component expensive, insurance expensive, labor cost expensive, and no subsidy at all, and no FIT. That kind of to-be-built renewable. Comparison of those two, is that a correct comparison? It depends on the country's position, which way the country wants to go. And from the financial industry's perspective, foreseeability, predictability is necessary. Otherwise, we cannot calculate. And therefore, foreseeability, predictability, like a carbon tax. By when? Yes, that information is available, but at what level of tax? We don't have the information as of today. We do not know the future of carbon tax or other prices, and we cannot calculate the return on investment. That is the current reality. And therefore, what can we do going forward? Everything is becoming expensive. And thinking about all those price hikes, in what way do we want to go as a country, and where do we want to put down our money? We have to think in that way. Thank you very much. The high-level direction, and we need foreseeability, predictability. If there is more visibility, it would become investable. Carbon tax, if it is 10,000 yen per ton, let's say, and as a high-level direction, if it becomes visible, investors might invest, and the timing, by when, the roadmap, timeline, by what time, what level of tax. It will start in fiscal 2028, but we don't know the amount, and we don't know if it is going to rise or decline, and we cannot see the final goal. Then profitability cannot be calculated, and that is a major barrier. Thank you very much for your comment. And then Ms. Miura at the TMG, Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Governor Koike also mentioned that panels have become mandatory for new build. And Izu peninsula, Izu Island. No, not the peninsula, correction. Poor geographical examination score. Apologies, but the offshore wind in Izu Island, maybe you can talk about the challenges and tell us your efforts, please.
改めまして
Thank you. I'm Miura from Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Can you pull up my slides? To realize zero-emission Tokyo is this slide, but if you could turn to the next slide, or I can do the clicker. So foreseeability, predictivity, and the direction, the role of municipal government is very important. I was thinking about that, listening to Miyake-san. A zero-emission Tokyo strategy beyond carbon half was announced in March of 2025, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by at least 60% by 2035 compared to 2000 is our target, and we are putting various initiatives in place. And we are illustrating our direction going forward. There are various initiatives. The first pillar is under policy number 1, making renewable energy a major energy source. And within this policy of making renewable energy a major energy source, I will cover 3 initiatives, one of which was covered by our governor in her video talk. So this is to introduce renewables on new builds and new houses and buildings. 70% of emissions come from of consumption is from buildings, and there is a big concentration of buildings in Tokyo. So which means that it's a big potential. It is an advantage of Tokyo Metropolitan Government that we have so many buildings. To leverage that, in December 2024, we modified our environment-related ordinance, and from April this year, we introduced a solar panel mandate for new houses and buildings. House builders, approximately 50 companies will be subject to this, and these 50 companies are accelerating their effort to comply with the standard. As you see on the right-hand side, or bottom left, this is the tendency that we're seeing, and ahead of modifying the ordinance, we have visited these 50 companies more than 5 or 6 times each, and we are getting inputs and feedback from the operators. As you can see, the business operators, with this new mandate in place, new products and services are being developed. PV houses could be sold as a standard type built for sales house. And as you see on the right-hand side, promotion of insulation, solar PV, and energy storage adoption. You can see the track record, and this is for the past 3 years. You can see that these energy-saving installations are being utilized in an accelerated manner. I do not have the most recent data, but we are expecting an acceleration year over year. There is definitely a growth in demand, and we are seeing initiatives penetrating into the market. Next, this is air solar, as we call it. It's a new technology, perovskite solar cell. And the naming, we put on a vote by the residents of Tokyo, and it is now named Air Solar. It's light, it can bend, and it's thin, and it can be applied on the exterior wall of buildings. So in a urban space like in Tokyo, there is big potential for solar to grow. So private and public collaboration is indispensable, and we have therefore come up with a roadmap. 1 gigawatt is our target for Tokyo, And in the initial phase of implementation, public facilities will be very important in creating demand. We will be implementing 10,000 kilowatt of air solar in facilities that are owned by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. For example, the Tokyo International Cruise Terminal, the photo you see on the right-hand side, and the garden lights. There are also already air solar technologies that are currently already implemented and put in place. It's just outside of the Tokyo gymnasium, and you should be able to see it. And lastly, I want to also briefly talk about wind, which came up in our earlier discussions. In the Izu Islands, the wind condition is very favorable around the Izu Islands. Since the ocean is very deep, bottom fixed type might be difficult, but floating offshore wind turbines is now available, and there is potential for Tokyo Metropolitan TMG to install this. Ensuring electricity in the islands and also to enhance the self-sustainability of power is very important, and therefore we are introducing gigawatt-class farms of floating offshore wind turbines. 5 fields have been identified as a preparatory area by law, and in order to move ahead, getting understanding of the local community is extremely critical, and therefore we are making sure we take the right steps and provide information to residents through briefing sessions, and also talk about the future of the islands. And so these dialogues are very relevant. So beyond carbon half is the strategy of TMG, and we aim to achieve decarbonization. We have presented a path going forward. Professor Takamura talked about environmental policy, and it's not only about environment. It's good for health, and it's also good for disaster risk reduction, and it also promotes industry and can also create employment. There are many benefits that it will bring across different areas. For Tokyo to become a green, a resilient city, this I think will be a driving force going forward. And so TMG is committed to build a resilient city. Thank you.
Mr. Sergio, thank you for the hand clapping. Indeed, the efforts of Tokyo Metro government, you are not only one step ahead of others all the time, you are 5 steps or more steps ahead. The targets are so ambitious, and the achievement, how do you evaluate the progress so far and your expectation?
Well, carbon half is a must, reducing carbon emissions by half. This is a must-achieve target. We will take action. Solar panels is one, and wind is another. We will put initiatives in place. And insulation, energy saving, maybe the topic is slightly different, but insulation is another area that we will work hard on. So reducing carbon emissions by half is something that we will definitely try to achieve. And so you are putting all the initiatives in place to make sure to achieve that. Yes, definitely.
Thank you for that. We discussed prior to the start of the symposium at the local site on the rooftop. Yes, they are definitely profitable and economically viable. And if it is to be used off-site, there are multiple mechanisms, and it might be a bit more expensive. But including such issues and topics, I would like to hear about the mechanism, the regime, about the power market. Professor Takahashi your radical comments, please. You have asked for a difficult task. Thank you for the introduction. Takahashi, Hosei University. We have learned about the United Nations report. And renewable energy is, after all, an opportunity. That is a critical message. But in Japan, and particularly in the last 1-2 years, there is an anti-renewable sentiment rising, unfortunately. I would like to thank you for the slide. I will start by talking something ambitious. For about 16 years or so, I have been researching renewable. In the 2000s, wind, solar, and other renewables, in the 2000s, it was considered unstable to expensive. And I agree, yes, 20 years ago, it was expensive, unstable. But now the cost has gone down significantly. Ms. Miyake did discuss that it is not exactly that cheap as it may look, but if it is going to be built in the future, it is overwhelmingly cheap. Is it stable? VRE, variable like solar and wind. It's just too unstable. Not too much can be utilized. That was the common sense 20 years ago. But by technology and in terms of economic viability, the variable renewable is no longer a problem. It is no longer a challenge. And the key word is flexibility. And therefore, stable supply is necessary. And I want to talk about the flexibility. So variable renewable energy, that it is not dispatchable, so supply demand cannot be balanced, some say. So we do not know when wind and solar will give us power. That is why thermal power is necessary. Yes, adjusting the output of the thermal power plant, that is a very important factor to ensure flexibility. On the other hand, there are other measures to ensure flexibility. Looking at Europe and across the world, that is now the accepted consideration to expand the transmission grid and wide area operation. The government of Japan has made a master plan and is just about to embark. And not known very much, but Japan's pumped hydro. Japan is the largest in the world, and there should be more potential. Another important point is the market mechanism. In the narrow sense, it is demand response. But in a competitive market, to balance supply and demand, when it is expensive, demand will naturally go down. When it is cheap, the demand will rise. This is also another important method, tool for flexibility. And if I dare to say so, some might misunderstand. But sometimes, if it is economically rational, renewable can be curtailed. More recently, the storage battery that can be plugged into the grid is available. Some say that supply and demand cannot be balanced. Even if renewables increase, the thermal power plant cannot be eliminated. That is no longer viable. In the 2 to 3 years, the inertia that it is without a condenser, it cannot be maintained. And after all, thermal power plant is still absolutely necessary. That is the opinion often heard in Japan. Like using the synchronous condenser, the technological answers are available, but grid forming inverter, the solar panel or the storage battery, it all is sourced from inverter. And with technological innovation, there is an inertia that can be virtually produced. It is inverter following, but now it can be converted into grid forming. In Australia, in the United Kingdom, such inverters are now deployed, and the challenge of the inertia can now be dealt with. Please look at this graph according to net zero by 2050 of IEA. In order to reach net zero, what is the scenario necessary? This report is very well known, and the upper part is advanced economies, lower part is developing economies. Please look at the upper part. What is the source of flexibility? And it is shown in the percentage. In 2020, this amount was thermal power plant used for flexibility, coal, natural gas more than half of flexibility. And you think that, yes, thermal is necessary, but by 2050, it is expected that almost no thermal is necessary. That is because storage battery and demand response can accommodate 50% of the necessary flexibility. That is according to IEA. This is the current situation and the future. And therefore, most likely the stable supply can be resolved. And you think that, no, not by 2050. Some might disagree. But please look at this very famous circumstance in Southern Australia. 1 year ago, I visited the state. At the moment, as of 2023, variable renewable energy is more than 70%. Very often Denmark is discussed, but it's a small country and there's Norway and they have lots of grids to plug in. But Southern Australia state, it is indeed a tiny state, but the base load is almost zero and the grid connection, it's limited. And despite the circumstances, wind and solar, more than 70% of the power is produced and the thermal is 26%. And flexibility is sufficiently adjusted. That is because of the storage battery for the grid. Because of that capacity, and also in the household, not only solar panel but storage battery, and with virtual power purchase, they can adjust. This is as of today. I'm not talking about the future. I mean, it's already the past for Southern Australia because they have been doing that. And by 2070, they want to go to 100% renewable. 2027, did you say? This data is of 2023, and by 2027, they say they will achieve net zero. So most likely, there is no problem of unstable supply. Then, the challenges of Japan, of course, curtailment and the dispatchment rule, but it is the need for more flexibility. Then we should be able to overcome these challenges. One of the flexibility is the transmission capacity. That investment is not profitable, and we might discuss a bit more about this. But in England, UK, not only interconnection, but to south, to north, inside England, they are discussing about constructing new grid. And in the case of Japan, as everybody has mentioned, should I say government or should I say the politicians, the priority is just too low. By 2040, the Strategic Energy Plan talks about only 40 to 50% of renewable. And the government is so little ambition. 84% is possible according to IEA by 2040. That is what IEA tells us. 84% renewable compared to IEA's simulation. Japan's national plan is at half. So from the investors, it will look a very small target. And this is a very regrettable situation for myself or for Renewable Energy Institute. It means that we are tasked to work harder, but that is the challenge. And as Mr. Masukawa mentioned, there is the risk in terms of economic security. Some say that solar panels are a risk in itself, but the security of the fuel and the security of the hardware like the panel, it is an entirely different concept. In terms of monetary value, it is different by 2 zeros. And fuel, if we run out of fuel tomorrow, we are in a huge trouble. And that is not the case with solar panel. But if a certain country decides not to export, the power generation will continue. In the case of Europe, for the purpose of security, renewal must be expanded. That way of thinking, I think, must be appealed, including myself personally. I think the major challenge is the siting, the location, the space. And there is a lot of ways to overcome, but when the Japanese people reject renewable, we simply cannot construct, and therefore we have to be very careful and neat in explaining to the Japanese population. I think this is going to be very important in terms of public acceptance. Thank you very much. Indeed, solar panel, the ratio of panel in the case of Japan is at maximum 30% or so, Masukawa-san. The solar panel accounts for what percentage of the entire project? There is the construction cost. 20% of the capex is construction cost. And it's not only about the panel cost, but the construction cost, inverter cost, land, space, and 20% of the cost is panel cost and fossil fuel reduction saving. If you compare that, even if all the panels are imported, 100 billion, I think, and 1 trillion yen or 2 trillion yen, still that will be a saving of import of fossil fuel. I mean, in terms of the trade and in terms of security, once you import, you can use it for 30 years. LNG, you spend what you have imported within 2 or 3 weeks, and then LNG is all consumed. So you can't just compare, it's so different. Thank you so much. Due to my poor time management, I think we should go to the next slide. How do I? Thank you. This is the next slide. So renewable, is it expensive only in Japan? Is Japan the only country where renewable is expensive? It seems that we have discussed almost enough for this afternoon. There is subsidy for fossil fuels, and the coming carbon tax. If carbon tax regime is sound, there might be a resolution. And any further comments? Yes, Mr. Masukawa?
I'll be brief. So land installation is on average 12 yen, and FIT is 9 yen, 10 yen. So it's difficult to develop it just by using a FIT. But in Germany, where cost is down, 100 kilowatt land installation under the current fixed foreign exchange, it's about 18 yen. It's about 18 yen. Germany increased it in order to make it more popular, but it's no longer that Japan is the country that is so expensive. Why did Germany decide to increase? Because they have a very high target for 2030, very ambitious, and the tariff rate is going up, and to decarbonize, they saw value in it. And also, they've introduced the carbon pricing. So there is value to the country. Is that correct? Yes. So at 18 yen, there will be investment. Coming back to this topic, if it was like 20 yen and huge investments were made back then, and if that's the price, I'm sure there will be investments in Japan. And it all depends on the policy to make the investment coming in to this space. So if the national government saw value in this. Yes, and talking about carbon pricing is like 0.4 yen, which is the levy on that. But in EU, it's like 3 yen or 4 yen per kilowatt hour. There is much value in it, whereas that is not the case in Japan. So there is a lack of competitiveness in that regard.
Thank you for your discussion. So together with carbon pricing, the central government as a policy must attach value. I think that was the conclusion for topic number 1. And number 2, earlier flexibility was discussed by Professor Takahashi, that there are different means. And one important is the storage battery with a grid. And curtailment was also mentioned. A curtailment about solar flexibility. Mr. Masukawa, not too long. If possible, can you find page 14?
So this is in Kyushu. In April and May, there was curtailment. The areas in orange, and spot price was 0 yen. And so why don't we use electricity so that demand will increase, which means that we don't need to curtail. And so it would be wasteful if we have to curtail. So spot price, wholesale spot price should be reflected in retail price. Is that the way forward? It is gradually moving in that direction, but not yet. I think we should aggressively move in that direction. Please raise your hand if you're going to make a comment.
けどこれね
If you look at this, 0.01 yen, it is truly a negative. The supply-demand principle, then it is supposed to be negative, but it is stopped at 0. That is under the Japanese rule. But in Europe, Australia, negative price is utilized. With negative price, then the storage battery will become more profitable. Mr. Masukawa, sorry for you, but solar, if we want to curtail, we can stop. And for the PV operators, it's not exactly a negative because curtailment will be reduced. You go to other countries and ask questions about curtailment, and they will not understand the question because there is no longer curtailment. There is a market mechanism, and the operators will decide to stop when they think it is necessary. If they do not stop the generation, they will lose money. That is genuinely level playing field, a fair market competition. So it's not just giving privilege to photovoltaic to wind. No, we are not asking for privilege. We just depend on the market mechanism to the price mechanism. Why don't we trust the market? And negative price is important. Masukawa-san, yes?
The areas in red, that's when it stopped. And if the operators want, they can adjust it. So it's adjustable. You can increase it or decrease or stop. There is flexibility. And that's for thermal, but so we should use this for adjustment purposes, and that adjustment capability is only available for thermal. Is that your point? Yes, that's right. It's only being adjusted in thermal, but if we make use of it, it would give the market a greater flexibility. There's so much more that you can do, but it is not well accepted, I guess, is your point. Thank you.
あと5分になって
We only have 5 minutes left, but you have a comment? Please allow me to correct. Oh, I have a question to Mr. Masukawa. 18 yen FIT. But if that is the case, then the power prices go up. If it is FIT, the surcharge will arise, whether that is a positive or not. I think there are many other possibilities. Raising FIT is not always the solution. You mentioned about the value, the pricing, valuation. I just wanted to make sure you are not asking to raise the FIT. I don't think that is possible under today's circumstances. So the environmental value, yes, the valuation. It was off the microphone. Now we have 3 minutes left. I really would like to continue overnight until morning, but let's look forward to the next opportunity. We discussed about structural barriers and challenges. We have identified them. And out of all the debate, what is your one single wish if there is someone who is going to fulfill one wish of you, starting with Mr. Masukawa?
May I talk about that? It's not that it's going to be adopted. We can't promise. Well, the tentative tax should be reduced, and oil and coal tax should be increased, and carbon tax should be increased so that there's tax neutrality, and and make sure it's replaced by carbon tax. And this is something that I would want the LDP people who are running the LDP presidential race to hear me.
価格を
I agree carbon tax is important and the pricing level is important. It must be world-class and the roadmap. So not the initial level, but within how many years, what level it is going to be. I would like to see the roadmap. Thank you to Wishes and Ms. Miura.
I was thinking about this question, and since I work the government, I think I'll have to say everything. Because at the end of the day, we want to build a city where renewables are installed everywhere, whether it be panels or building walls and ocean and so forth. Renewables will be installed everywhere to generate energy that is needed in the city. So Tokyo to become independent in energy. Yes, that is exactly right. A city that is generating power. Yes, I hope someone will make this possible. We do have a camera person to photo you.
これまでのご意見
Professor Takashi, I agree with the opinions, and if I may say something, not like a researcher, but the awareness of the Japanese population, climate crisis and energy security crisis, we are facing a tremendous risk. In order to overcome that, the strongest possibility is renewable. Renewable is not the only one. Yes, there could be some demerit or disadvantages, but overall, then for the decarbonization and to ensure Japan's energy security, absolutely overwhelmingly, Japan can only increase renewable. It is important for Japan to increase renewable, and then we have to avoid the disadvantages, and the priority is important. The LDP, a political party presidential candidates, they are misled by wrong information, and I have a sense of crisis that Japanese population are misled by misinformation. So we want to change the awareness. Thank you very much, and therefore, for all of you who have come all the way to this hall, and for everybody who will listen to this program online, I am sure that each and every one of us can become an agent to change the awareness. We may not always be absolutely correct, but I think we can start talking, starting dialogue. Remaining silent will not change anything, so we have to talk, have dialogue. If you have any question, please do start talking, debating with people around you. Once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Takase-san, and to all the panelists. Thank you very much. Please kindly return to your seat. Closing remarks by the Executive Director of Renewable Energy Institute, Teduyuki Ono, will offer his closing remarks. Thank you, Ono, Executive Director. Thank you very much for staying with us until the end. There was a very inspiring, active, heated, hot debate. My gratitude goes to all other speakers. During the symposium at the outset, we received a message by Mr. Selwyn Hart, Special Advisor to the Secretary General, and from Governor Koike of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, that we are at the moment of opportunity to transition away from fossil. United Nations, if we look back in May 1969, the then Secretary General U Thant had mentioned in the report submitted to ECOSOC that the combustion of fossil fuels has brought an increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide, and if the increase continues, it could eventually be catastrophic. On the other hand, TMG, 1 year later, released a report titled Pollution and the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and quoted the report by Secretary General U Thant, introduced the warning that human activities are causing environmental destruction, and Tokyo went on to say that as long as those environmental destruction are man-made, if the cause are human activities, then the destruction can definitely be prevented by human power, and Tokyo expressed a determination to work on the conservation of the environment. The report by S.G. Guterres, released this July, I think has made clear that after half a century since the United Nations first raised the issue, with the use of renewable energy that has become available in huge quantities and at affordable prices, humankind have now found the opportunity to resolve the global crisis caused by human activities by their own capabilities. In Japan these days, as was mentioned in the panel, there are unilateral reports spreading around focusing only on the negatives and burdens due to the expansion of renewable energy, such as the surcharge. We at the Renewable Energy Institute will endeavor to communicate the benefits of energy transition, because we should not turn our back to the power of renewable energy we have at hand. Our institute will endeavor to communicate the benefit of energy transition presented in the UN report in an easy-to-understand manner in accordance with the circumstances of Japan, and we will continue to demonstrate that the expansion of renewable energy is indeed the pathway for Japan. May I introduce an upcoming event hosted by our co-organizer of today's program, JCI. On November the 7th, the Japan Climate Action Summit will be held, November 7th. And this year's Action Summit will be held right before COP30 and will include the recent climate crisis and the challenges of the advanced businesses taking the lead in the use of renewable energy. And there will be a report and debate on the pathway to decarbonization for the world and Japan. May I continue by brief remarks by asking for your kind participation and cooperation for the JCAS Symposium, as all the other various efforts against climate change and decarbonization. Thank you very much indeed.